welcome back for another deep dive.
Yeah.
Today we're going to be checking out this book called The Rise of Female Supremacy with a really long subtitle, How Cultural Marxism and Feminism Are Reshaping Society by Connie Reichert.
Yeah.
I'm very excited about this one.
It's a catchy title.
It is a very catchy title, and I think she really goes there in this book, which is why we're going to do a deep dive on it. She really explores this idea of like female dominance and how it's like taking over everything from, education to family structures to the legal system to the welfare state.
It's comprehensive.
It is very comprehensive, and I think it's going to be a really interesting conversation. So let's jump right in. Chapter 2 is where she really lays the groundwork for her argument, and she talks about how feminism and what she calls cultural Marxism have really systematically dismantled traditional gender roles. So it's not just about equality anymore.
Right.
It's about a complete power shift.
Yeah.
And she uses some interesting stats to back this up. Like, she talks about how women are now surpassing men in college enrollment and graduation rates.
Oh, wow.
And she connects this to like the emasculation of men, and particularly in the context of family and work.
I see.
So she's saying like, hey, look, we're winning. And not just winning, but maybe even like taking over.
Yeah.
So what do you think about that argument?
Well, she argues that as women become more educated and financially independent, they're less reliant on men,
Right.
both economically and emotional. And this, she claims, leads to a decline in men's traditional role as providers and protectors, which she believes undermines their masculinity.
That's pretty bold.
Yeah.
I mean, isn't it possible that men are just evolving and adapting to a changing world?
Well, that's a valid point, but she believes that this shift in gender dynamics isn't simply an evolution. It's a deliberate dismantling of patriarchal structures orchestrated, in her view, by feminist ideology and cultural Marxism.
Okay, so now I'm really intrigued. Break down this cultural Marxism thing for me. What is that exactly?
Well, she uses this term to describe a perceived ideological movement that seeks to subvert traditional Western values and institutions. She sees it as an insidious force that promotes, among other things, feminism, LGBTQ plus rights, and multiculturalism, all with the goal of undermining traditional hierarchies and ultimately establishing a Marxist utopia.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah.
So she's basically saying that feminism is a tool of this larger cultural Marxist agenda.
That's how she frames it.
Wow.
She sees feminism in its modern form as inherently radical and destructive, aimed at not just achieving equality, but at achieving dominance.
It's like she's flipped the script on the whole victim-oppressor narrative.
Right.
Instead of women being oppressed, she's saying they're now the ones in control.
It's definitely a different perspective.
It's a very controversial perspective.
Yeah.
And she really dives into this in chapter 6, where she tackles the Me Too movement.
Okay.
And this is where her argument gets particularly fiery.
Oh, yeah. I remember this chapter.
Yeah. She does not hold back.
No, she doesn't.
She basically says that the Me Too movement is a witch hunt.
Yeah.
Designed to demonize men and undermine due process.
Exact. And she uses the example of James, a man who was falsely accused of sexual assault,
Right.
to illustrate what she sees as the dangers of this movement. She argues that Me Too has created an environment where men are presumed guilty until proven innocent, and where accusations alone can ruin lives.
It's a strong critique, for sure. And it's definitely one that sparked a lot of debate. It's like she's saying, look, we need to be careful about the power we wield.
Yeah.
But then in chapter 7, she takes this idea of female empowerment to a whole other level with her discussion of transgenderism.
Interesting.
Yeah. Well, this is where she connects transgender rights to the broader feminist agenda.
I see.
So how does she make that connection? Well, she argues that the transgender movement, with its emphasis on challenging traditional gender norms, further empowers women by dismantling the very concept of a fixed gender binary. It's like she's saying, if gender is fluid, then women can be anything they want to be.
That's a new way to look at it.
Yeah, it's almost like she's using transgender rights as an example of how far feminism has come, how much power women have gained in redefining societal norm.
It's definitely an interesting take. It's important to note, though, that her views on transgenderism are controversial, to say the least.
Oh, absolutely, no doubt about that. And then in chapter 8, she shifts gears a bit and explores the rising rates of antidepressant use among women.
Okay.
This one really got me thinking.
What stood out to you?
Well, she poses this question. Is this increase in antidepressant use a sign of women's struggles in a modern world? Or is it actually a symptom of their pursuit of dominance? Like maybe women are feeling more stressed and anxious because they're constantly striving to be on top. It's a pretty provocative question.
It is a provocative question. She doesn't really offer a definitive answer, but she definitely raises some interesting points about the complexities of women's mental health in the context of this supposed rise of female supremacy.
Yeah, it's a lot to think about.
It is.
And it makes you wonder, like, are we really on this path to like total female domination.
Right.
Is that what the future holds?
It's a question worth pondering.
It is, and it ties in nicely with her exploration of single-parent households, especially those headed by mothers.
Yeah, chapters 4 and 20.
Yeah.
She seems to see this trend as like a double-edged sword.
She does.
Right? Like, on one hand, she presents it as evidence of women's growing independence. Like, they don't need men to have and raise children. They're perfectly capable of doing it on their own.
Right. It's like a testament to their strength and self-sufficiency.
Exactly. But on the other hand, she also raises concerns about the potential societal consequences of this trend, particularly the impact on children growing up without fathers.
And of course, she can't talk about single mothers without bringing up the welfare state.
Right.
It's like she sees the welfare system as this enabler of female supremacy.
Absolutely. In chapter 20, she argues that welfare policies are designed to incentivize single motherhood,
Interesting.
making it financially viable for women to raise children without the need for a male partner. She even goes so far as to suggest that this creates a system of dependence, where women are essentially beholden to the government, further consolidating their power.
It's a pretty controversial take, to say the least. I mean, do you think there's any merit to her argument?
Well, it's certainly true that welfare policies have a significant impact on family structures and economic choices.
Right.
Whether those policies are intentionally designed to empower women or simply reflect a changing social landscape is a matter of debate.
It's like she's saying, look, the system is rigged in our favor.
Yeah.
And she doesn't stop there. She also takes aim at the family court system,
Oh, boy.
claiming it's biased against men.
Chapter 21 is a doozy.
Oh, yeah.
She lays out her case with the story of Bill Smith, a successful businessman who's forced to pay exorbitant child support, despite his ex-wife's earning capacity.
It's like she's saying we're not just winning an education in the workplace, we're also conquering the legal system.
It's a bold statement.
It is. And the whole weaponized victim-perpetrator complex she talks about in Chapter 10 is pretty intense, too.
Yes, that's a very provocative concept.
She argues that some women manipulate the system by portraying themselves as victims, even when they're not.
Interesting.
Right? It's like they're using victimhood as a weapon to gain power and control, often with devastating consequences for men. The example of Sarah falsely accusing John of abuse really drives that point home.
Yeah, it does raise some important questions about the potential for misuse and the importance of due process in these situations.
Absolutely. And then she goes even further, suggesting that this manipulation is connected to a deeper psychological need.
The daddy complex.
Yes, a daddy complex from chapters 11 and 12. This is where things get really interesting.
Okay, so what's her take on this?
Well, she suggests that some women seek out relationships with powerful men, or even institutions like the government, to fulfill a subconscious desire for protection and authority.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, it's like they're looking for a replacement for the traditional patriarchal figure.
Right.
But instead of relying on a husband or father, they're turning to big government to be their daddy.
I see.
Right.
It's a bold claim.
It is. And she links this shift to the decline of traditional religion, suggesting that women are transferring their reliance from a sky daddy to a more earthly authority figure.
Wow.
It's a pretty bold connection, I'll give her that.
Right.
But what I find fascinating is how she ties all of this back to the concept of emotionality as truth.
Ah, yes. Chapters 14 and 15.
Yes.
She delves into the idea that women's emotions are often perceived as inherently valid regardless of facts or evidence.
Right, like if a woman feels something strongly enough, it must be true. And Recker argues that this can be incredibly dangerous, especially in legal contexts or public discourse.
Exactly. And she points to historical cases like the Duke Lacrosse case and the McMartin preschool trial,
Right.
where accusations later proven false had devastating consequences for the accused men.
It's a sobering reminder that emotions, while powerful, don't always align with reality.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder about the implications of this emotionality as truth phenomenon in a society where women are supposedly gaining more and more power.
That's precisely the point she's trying to make.
Yeah.
She argues that this tendency to privilege women's emotions, combined with their growing influence in institutions and social structures, creates a fertile ground for what she calls female supremacy.
It's a compelling argument for sure.
It is, and it makes you wonder, what does the future hold for men in this kind of society where this is all happening?
It's a scary thought for some, I'm sure.
It is.
But it's interesting because she doesn't just focus on the negative aspects of female empowerment. She also talks about, the positives, like the strength and resilience of women, and how they're really breaking down barriers and achieving amazing things.
Yeah, she highlights their accomplishments.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a celebration of female power in a way.
It is.
But it's also a warning.
Right.
Like, be careful.
Yeah, she's saying hey, this is happening whether you like it or not.
Right.
And here are the potential consequences.
Exactly. And some of those consequences are pretty dire. Like, she talks about the decline of the family, the rise of single motherhood,
Welfare state,
the welfare state.
which she sees as kind of propping up this whole system.
Right. It's like this vicious cycle,
Yeah.
where women are becoming more and more independent, but at the same time, they're becoming more and more reliant on the government.
And that's where she sees the danger.
Right.
That eventually women will become so powerful that they'll essentially control the government.
And then what happens to men?
That's the question, isn't it?
That is the question. It's a very dystopian vision of the future.
It is.
But, it's one that we need to consider.
I agree.
Because if we're not careful, it could become a reality.
And she argues that we're already seeing signs of this happen,
Oh, absolutely. She points to things like the gender pay gap.
which she sees as a myth.
Right. She says it's a myth perpetuated by feminists to keep women oppressed. And she also talks about the way that men are portrayed in the media.
As incompetent.
As incompetent as bumbling fools.
Right.
As you know, the butt of every joke.
Always the bad guy.
Always the bad guy. And she sees this as a deliberate attempt to undermine men's authority and status in society.
Right. It's like a cultural emasculation.
Exactly. And she argues that this is all part of a larger plan to create a society where women are in control.
It's a pretty radical idea.
It is, but, it's one that's gaining
I
traction.
mean, you see it in the news.
Oh, absolutely.
In popular culture.
Everywhere.
It's everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's something that we need to be aware of.
I agree. So what can we do about it? I mean, if Riker is right and we're on this path to female supremacy, is there anything we can do to stop it?
Well, that's a tough question. She doesn't offer any easy answers, but she does suggest that men need to start fighting back.
How so?
Well, she says that men need to reclaim their masculinity.
Okay.
They need to reassert their authority in the family and in society. And they need to start pushing back against feminist ideology.
So basically, she's calling for a men's rights movement.
That's one way to interpret it.
It's a pretty controversial stance to take.
It is, but it's one that's resonating with a lot of men.
I can see why. It's a very appealing message for guys who feel like they're losing ground.
Yeah, they feel like they're being marginalized.
That's
They feel
right.
like they're being demonized.
And Riker's giving them a voice.
She's saying, hey, you're not alone.
Right.
There are other people out there who feel the same way.
And we need to do something about it.
We need to fight back.
It's a powerful message.
Yeah.
And it's one that I think is going to continue to gain momentum in the years to come.
I agree. It's a conversation that's not going away anytime soon.
No, it's not. And it's one that we need to have.
We need to talk about these issues openly and honestly,
Exactly. Even if they're uncomfortable.
even if they're controversial.
Because if we don't talk about them, they're just going to fester and grow.
And they could lead to some very real problems down the road.
Exactly. So let's keep talking. Let's keep exploring these ideas. And let's see where they lead us.
I'm game if you are.
I'm definitely game. All right. Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive into the rise of female supremacy.
It has been.
It's a book that's really challenged my thinking, and I hope it's done the same for you.
Me too.
If you're interested in learning more about Connie Riker's work, you can find her book on Amazon Kindle and Google Play Books.
Check it out.
It's definitely worth a read. All right. Thanks for joining us for another deep dive. We'll see you next time.
See you later. It has been a journey through the mind of Connie Riker for sure.
It has. And it's made me think about, the future of gender relations in a whole new light.
Right. I mean, it's hard to deny that things are changing.
Yeah.
And Riker's book really forces us to confront those changes head on.
It does. It makes you wonder, what does the future hold?
Right. Like, what's next?
Yeah, are we headed towards some kind of like Amazonian matriarchy?
I mean, it's a possibility.
It is. And it's one that Riker seems to both celebrate and fear.
Right. She's excited about the prospect of female empowerment, but she's also worried about the potential consequences.
Exactly. And one of the things that I keep coming back to is this idea of the weaponized victim-perpetrator complex.
Yeah, that's a powerful concept.
It is. It's like she's saying that some women are using their victimhood as a way to gain power and control over men.
And she argues that this is happening on a society.
Right, like she points to the Me Too movement as an example.
Yeah, where accusations alone can ruin a man's life.
Exactly. And it makes you wonder, how much of this is real and how much of it is just like a power grab.
It's hard to say for sure.
It is, but it's definitely something that we need to be aware of.
We do. I mean, we need to be careful about not jumping to conclusions, and we need to make sure that everyone gets a fair hearing.
Absolutely. And another thing that I found really interesting was her discussion of the daddy complex.
Oh, yeah, that was a fascinating chapter.
It was. It's like she's saying that some women are looking for a replacement for the traditional patriarchal figure.
Right, and they're finding it in the government.
Yeah, big government is becoming the new daddy.
It's an interesting analogy.
It is, and it makes you wonder, what are the implications of that?
I mean, it could lead to a society where women are completely dependent on the state.
Right.
Which could give the government even more power.
Exactly. It's a slippery slope.
It is, and it's one that we need to be mindful of.
Absolutely. So overall, I think this has been a really thought-provoking deep dive.
It has been.
It's a book that's definitely challenged my thinking, and I hope it's done the same for you.
Yeah, me too.
If you're interested in learning more about Connie Riker's work, You can find her book, The Rise of Female Supremacy, on Amazon Kindle and Google Play Books.
It's a wild ride.
It is, but it's definitely worth checking out.
I agree.
All right, well, thanks for joining us for another deep dive.
It was fun.
It was. We'll see you next time.
See ya.